Well, on the topic of strategy and security strategy and compliance, so you've been responsible for compliance, on a big level. What would be like the difference in if you were going to compare like a transmission or operations strategy or operations, the operations type situation you were doing like with MISO and SPP, the control room, like how would that differ from like a power generation set of security strategies? Because the transmission and power generation being completely different, does that change?
You know, um, so it was fascinating to me to get back over to the utility space. And, you would think, innocently think, that because there's this independent ISO and RTO out there, that they're taking care of all the compliance.
Right.
But that isn't actually what happens. They do that, don't get me wrong, but the entities that have the power generation, that are responsible for managing and controlling the grid, have just as much compliance obligation and responsibility, maybe in a different way, but it's still there. They still have things that they have to do to maintain that compliance. They get audited. The RTOs get audited. So that, there may be nuances to the things that they're responsible for, but everybody still is responsible for security, no matter if they're part of an RTO or not.
Okay. Another thing we've spoken about in the past, Catherine, is different security perspectives. And one of the things that you mentioned to me a couple weeks ago was about Norway and how they had a unique way of doing things. Would you mind talking about that a little?
No, I don't mind talking about it at all. I think that's a great solution.
Okay.
Now there are people out there that disagree with this, so it'd be great to have the opposite perspective. But fundamentally, their philosophy is we're going to make everybody part of the solution to help solve the problem. And so they share a lot of information with the general public. And the way I kind of perceive it is they teach the public about whatever's going on so they can then be active um, security operators, quite frankly, in what's going on all the time. In the United States, we have I say we have a fear mentality. We don't want to share information with people because we're afraid they're going to do something nefarious with it. Well, you know what? There are some people that will. There is no doubt about it. I'm absolutely positive. But if you invoke the majority of people to help with the solution, you have a lot more people helping solve the problem because most people are good. The majority of people do not come with a noble, most people come with noble intent. And if you can help people understand what it is that they need to be worried about, then they can come help in a big way. I think leaders have a tendency, I know they have a tendency, to underestimate the ability of people below them. There's just way too much fear, and especially in this industry, I can't tell you the number of fearful leaders that I've seen go, "Oh no, no, we can't tell people that. They won't do the right thing with it." People are amazing. They will come to the table like gangbusters. I mean, transparency is a phenomenal tool to have people come and perform in a way that you would not otherwise experience, but for creating that transparency and helping them, letting them help you help solve all the problems. That's where I think we need to be.
So in the Norway situation, that seems to be working for them.
Yeah, it's working great.
That's amazing.
So some of the naysayers will say, well, it's because they're small. I don't know if it's because they're small. I mean, Norway's not that small, or they're an island or whatever, but I think it's really about people not having extended that trust and experiencing, because again, it's change, right? It's one of those changey things that people don't like. This has always worked for me. So if I try that, I might fail. Well, yeah, you might fail, but you might succeed. You might succeed in a much bigger way. And if you fail, it may not have been about the transparency. It might have been about something else, which is one of the things that I really want to get to in Ascend to Excellence. But, it's hard for us to go, well, here's what I've always known and here's what I've always done. And it's worked really well to, let me try this new thing that I don't know anything about. I know somebody's telling me it might work, but I'm pretty scared. So let's don't do it. It's hard.
No, I appreciate that insight. That's very interesting. And one of the things I've been wanting to ask you, just to kind of transition back into the executive level talk. One of the things that's come up in the last few episodes of this show is where the CISO belongs on an org chart. I know we didn't prep for this, but I'm curious for your response on that. Where do you think the CISO should be have higher responsibilities, or where do you think the CISO should be in the org chart in a company?
Tell me what CISO stands for.
The Chief Information Security Officer.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I want to make sure.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
been in a lot of places. There are a lot of acronyms. Where does it belong?
Yeah, I mean, would you think it should report direct, like it be a dotted line to a CIO, or do you think it should report to a CIO?
Boy, what a great question. I think you have to, it's good that it's getting debated. I could understand and appreciate that folks on the security side are saying, we're not getting enough done, we need more power. So make us equal. If there's not a balance of power or balance of whatever, then I think you have a problem. I think that's problematic. One of the challenges that I think the industry is facing is, at least in my opinion, one of the questions in my mind is, how much security do we need, really? For example, EMP is a big topic, has been a big topic in the industry for quite a little while. And I'm not a subject matter expert in this area, but I know a fair amount about it. And there are really two types of EMP. There's localized EMP, and there is nationalized EMP. So you could have EMP, and the EMP that everybody talks about is, you have a nuclear bomb that explodes in the atmosphere over the whole country, and all electronics are taken out of service. Well, that at least the latest science I've read, you won't disrupt the entire country, but you could disrupt with a nuclear bomb a huge segment of the country. Well, the reality is if that happens, whether or not you have power, I think it's the least of our worries. So, that doesn't scare me too much. As it relates to localized EMP, so you can put a device in the back of a pickup truck, for example, and you can drive it past a substation and you could kill the whole substation. Well, what I know about the grid is that it's resilient enough that cascading to take out a lot, it'll take that substation out, and people are probably going to lose power. But the system is so resilient because of all the hard work that the industry has done for such a long time, that taking out one substation is going to cause some localized challenges, but widespread, that doesn't scare me either. So, I think it's a question about how are we secure enough? Do we know whether or not we're secure enough? Are we asking ourselves the right question? Or the people who are experts in this? Because I'll tell you, one of the frustrations for me is that I've got this security person telling me you need to do this, and I can't tell you why. Seriously?
Right.
Come on. If you can't tell me why, how do you expect me to be able to perform? You want me to perform blindly? That's not practical. Humans don't function like that. I've sat in FBI security briefings, that I've had security clearance to be in. And when I walked out of them, I didn't walk out feeling like I learned anything new. Um, Now, maybe I wasn't listening close enough. I don't know. But, it was a secure briefing. And maybe there were some little things in there. And obviously, I'm not going to tell you about them because I'm not fixing to get arrested by the FBI. But generally, I didn't learn anything that I hadn't already heard in the mainstream. They were confirming some things, sure,
Hmm.
but I didn't feel like I learned something that the rest of society just can't handle. So, with that kind of as a backdrop, I think we got to get more transparent about what it is that we're guarding against. Otherwise, you've got this blind power push, and that concerns me. That concerns me a lot. I don't want to live in a state of fear. I just don't want to. It's a horrible way to live. So I don't know. I'm not. I guess if you tell me right now I had to make a decision about where I was going to put them, I would put them. I'd keep them under the CIO
Okay.
because I'd be worried about what the long term ramifications were when we're in an environment that feels on some levels like fear mongering is not really the right word, but it almost feels like that sometimes.
Right. Right. Well, thank you for taking that on.
You're welcome.
That was raw, but it wasn't bad. All right, so you're the president and CEO of Ascend to Excellence, which is a management consulting leadership development company where you coach and grow C-level executives and you help them develop cultural different. You work on their cultures and stuff. This is very interesting. Tell us about this company.
So, one of the things that I learned coming up through the ranks is, I could find all kinds of information on what are the attributes that I need to have as an individual. And I'll tell you, the first attribute that I think every leader absolutely has to have is empathy. If you don't have that as a starting point, you're gonna. I don't know how you get where you need to go culturally. And so you can find all those things, and you can find definitions for them on the web, and you can find all that stuff. But what you can't what's harder to find is, what do I do about this culture that I have? People aren't doing what I want them to. They're not happy. They don't feel empowered. They feel overworked. Who wants to work in an environment like that? And so all every group that I had, one of the primary things that I tried to do was focus on and create a culture that people wanted to be in. Because if people are in cultures they want to be in, they are going to bust their butts trying to get whatever it is that you need. And so what Ascend to Excellence is it is about that. It is about what do you need to do? How do you figure out? Because it's different for each organization. It's different for each group. What each group needs is different, and it evolves over time. Cultures change over time based on what's going on in the environment, and you have to nurture them, and you have to take care of them. And so that's what Ascend to Excellence is really about. It's really about taking. I mean, we can do the lower level stuff too, because that's a component of it. If your leadership's not having the right attributes, then you need those as a foundation. But it's really about, how do you take that leadership, make it even stronger than it is, or make it strong if it's not, and create an environment that everybody wants to be a part of. That's really what it's about.
I've heard of coaching. I've heard of coaching and mentoring leaders, but to help them create a new culture, that's new.
Yeah, that's what I think.
I think it's cool.
Take all that experience I've had and put it to work.
No, exactly. I mean, if anyone has the example of the path to take, it's you.
Yeah, so one of the things that I used to tell my teams all the time, and I fell victim to it myself, is we don't have to be experts at everything, and in fact, we shouldn't be. And sometimes when you bring someone in from the outside, especially as it relates to cultures, because We know when we're working in groups that we have to maintain a certain type of relationship. And sometimes calling things out, if you're in a working relationship, can be more challenging than bringing someone in like myself. And then I'm going to go at the end of the day, and so the position that a consultant has in helping with cultures can be very different and beneficial to creating that change than for the individuals that are right in the middle of it. Now, the individuals that are right in the middle of it still ultimately have to decide what the culture needs to look like and decide how to evolve it. But the bringing an outsider in can help you see things that you don't see because you're in the middle of it, and can very, very intentionally help you call balls and strikes, and more importantly, can be the expert while you're focusing on being the expert at what you really need to be the expert at, which is designing substations or transmission lines or doing compliance or whatever it is. So that's really the objective, is to be helpful.
I would imagine that a lot of the leaders from the bulk electric industry would want to reach out to you and really get this advice from you.
I'd love it if they would. I think I'm uniquely positioned in this space in particular to help.
Well, I'm in a uniquely qualified position to help as well, I think, with the contacts we have. So, yes, I think that would be a great thing. Man, that's exciting, Katherine.
Yeah. So, they can reach out to me at my email, which is Katherine at Ascend Excellence, which is also the webpage, Ascend Excellence. So the two's not in there. I'm trying to work on that because it's a little clunky. But the website's ascendexcellence.com, and phone number's there. And if you know me for a long time and you have my cell phone number, I've had that sucker for over 2 decades. Just pick up the phone and call me.
Yes, you have. All right. Well, listen, I really appreciate your time. This has been awesome, and I'm sure a couple of your answers are really going to spur a little bit of activity. And I just want to go ahead and invite you to, when we get the whole situation figured out and we can have a panel interview with like 4 people, we'd love to have you on that. And in the interim, I just want to wish you the best of luck with Ascend to Excellence, and anyone that needs a great executive coach who can teach them about new cultures and really help them. This is the person. This is Katherine Prewitt, who is taking the time with us today on Riskwork News. And Katherine, thanks so much for being on again, and hopefully we're going to talk real soon.
Thanks. It was my pleasure.
Awesome. Hey, listen, this was Riskwork News. We'll see you next time. Thanks very much.
Let me tell you about my job.